Today, we meet the new director of the St. Louis Art Museum. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Well, the St. Louis Art Museum has a stellar reputation, of course, not just in this country, but beyond. And they have a new director, as you probably know, Min-Jung Kim, and we welcome her to City Corner. Min-Jung, welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
And welcome to St. Louis.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
Later in the second half of this program, we're going to be talking to somebody else, a curator from the museum, about a new exhibition that opens on February the 20th, and that's Paintings on Stone. I guess you've had a little peek at it, have you?
Not yet. The works are in transit, but it is certainly an exhibition that I'm looking forward to not only seeing myself, but also sharing with our visitors. It is really an extraordinary exhibition featuring exquisite works that is really following a relatively unknown tradition of artists painting on stone surfaces as opposed to panel or canvas, and have created a beautiful presentation of works featuring a myriad of portraits, mythological scenes, as well as sacred images, roughly dating from 1530 to 1800.
Well, I didn't really know what the exhibition was about when I first heard about it, and I have a friend that does a little artwork on stones. You've seen people do that. So I thought, is that what they're talking about?
Well, from a particular date back in history, I think what it shows is some extensive research that our curator, Judy Mann, had done, inspired by an acquisition that the St. Louis Art Museum had purchased a while back. This has launched a whole scholarly exploration into this relatively less known topic. So an exhibition that we're really excited to share with everyone.
I've got so many questions for you. I want to find out just a little bit about your personal life as well as professional, and we'll get to all that. But something I just found out the other day that I was surprised that you had, I just figured, being in the business you're in, and the St. Louis Art Museum being what it is, that you had probably been here sometime or something, but you had never been to St. Louis until you came here for an interview for your job. Is that right?
That is correct. I must confess, it was only when I started to interview for this position that I came to St. Louis for the first time. But I must say, having come here once, I was immediately hooked. And I have since then really begun to discover more about St. Louis and finding out what an extraordinary place this is.
What impressions did you have of St. Louis before you came here? I mean, you probably saw Meet Me in St. Louis, right?
I have not actually, so it's on my bucket list of many things that I need to do. Some of which I'm ticking off as I'm beginning to understand St. Louis, including having now been to my first Cardinals game, which I've done. I've been to some of the extraordinary places that exist here in St. Louis, to the zoo, to the Botanical Gardens, to many of the cultural organizations that are here, including the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, the Contemporary Art Museum, Kemper, Laumeyer, the Griot Museum, and many, many others. But I have to say, what I did know about St. Louis was really largely based on my understanding of the St. Louis Art Museum and appreciating, even from afar, what an extraordinary place that it is.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in the beginning I mentioned what a stellar, those are my words, reputation that it has. So I was wondering, in the professional world that you're a part of, never been here, was I exaggerating?
Not at all, not at all. It does indeed have a stellar reputation. It is highly regarded, certainly among museum professionals, certainly among artists and collectors, and I think really has a incredible reputation, not only nationally, but also internationally as well. Primarily because of our collection, which is truly a world-class collection of encyclopedic collection of incredible breadth and depth, spanning multiple generations of time and history, geographies, cultures, and perspectives. and really an opportunity to really see the world through the lens of the St. Louis Art Museum collection.
And how about just the building itself, for goodness sakes? The building you're in now was there because of the 1904 World's Fair. The museum's been around longer than that. It was at a different location. I don't know much about it, but moved there at that time. But the building itself is incredible.
The building is incredible, not only in terms of the Cass Gilbert building, which you've mentioned, constructed for the World's Fair, but also the extension of the East Building through Sir David Chipperfield. And really it shows an evolution of museums over time and as it continues to house and accommodate our world-class collection.
I'd really kind of like to get to just to know a little bit about you and your upbringing and how you ended up here to begin with. Now, I know that you were born in South Korea. Did you spend most of your young life there?
So I was born and raised in Seoul, South Korea, where I was until about 18. I first came to the United States really to pursue my undergraduate studies. I was interested in coming to the United States to have a liberal arts education. I started college at Wheaton College, which is in Norton, Massachusetts, and that's where I discovered art history that has led me to the career path that I'm currently on.
Were you a little amateur artist yourself or not?
No, not at all. Very early on, I realized that I had no artistic talent other than really to appreciate it.
Well, what was it like growing up in Seoul? Now, Seoul's a big city, right?
Seoul is a big city. I think the last time I looked, I think the Seoul had a population of about 15 million or so, give or take.
Was it kind of an urban environment for you?
It was a very urban environment for me, which in many ways, it's probably why the transition from Seoul to New York, which I did the second time I came to the United States, felt very familiar from one urban environment to the next.
Brent Benjamin is the gentleman who you were replacing. I think he was direct 22 years or something like that. What's the best advice he gave you?
Well, I have to say I'm very fortunate in that Brent Benjamin, not only as my predecessor, but a colleague that I have both from afar, but now also very near as someone that I continue to speak with, continues to give me great advice. Both because he and I share one main thing in common, which is how do we, as leaders, both past and present, continue to preserve the success of this institution that we both think very, very highly of. And with that in mind, I think there is this continued and great partnership.
Speaking about supporting an institution, you know, it takes money, right? Is that something you worry about? Or is there always funding for things like the arts and museums? Or is that a struggle sometimes?
I think all museums always worry about money and funding and support. And I must say the St. Louis Art Museum is so very fortunate and rather unique in the sense that this is truly a blessed institution having and continuing to receive such public support. Perhaps more so than many museums across the country. And it's with this in mind that our responsibilities and our priority continues to be about how we serve ultimately our main constituents, which is our community.
One note I want to ask you about, and it's a little thing that's sort of a big thing, if I can put it that way. I read the article the Post-Dispatch wrote about you when your appointment was first announced. And this is what they said, and this is a quote, and I just want to know what it means to you. They pointed out that you are the first woman and the first person of color to get the top job here. I don't know if that means a lot to you or if it does.
It means a great deal to me. It's a great privilege. It's a great honor to indeed be the first of all that you've just mentioned. At the same time, I am very much looking forward to being the first of many more to come. And that this is just yet another chapter of the continuing legacy of extraordinary firsts and many more that the St. Louis Art Museum has and will continue to follow as part of our tradition.
Well, isn't it good that a person can follow their dream and it doesn't matter what color their hair is or how much they weigh or whatever it is?
Oh, absolutely.
Something else I wanted to ask you about. I think you made this point at one time, that great institutions must continue to evolve and not remain static. How does that apply to what you're doing now?
Well, I must say, as we were talking about before, the St. Louis Art Museum indeed has a stellar reputation. It is an institution with a very long and distinguished history, has a premier art collection, has a nationally and an internationally well-known staff and network of curators. And in many cases with institutions that have such a long history and such a solid foundation, it's very often that the openness for change might not necessarily be something that is a priority. But in the case of the St. Louis Art Museum, as I was really beginning to explore whether this was indeed the right fit for me and vice versa, I was curious to see what kind of attitude the museum had towards the future. There were a few things that, to my delight and surprise, gave me great hope and optimism, one of which was this diversity study report that was initiated by the museum's Board of Commissioners. And it was essentially a very, very comprehensive report that analyzed and also proposed a set of actions and policies, more than 150 of them, to really both embed and prioritize diversity as part of our organization. And that's been really extraordinary to see how that, as well as part of many of the processes that the museum undertakes, listening to the community and getting feedback and input is always a common sort of goal as part of understanding how best to move forward. So those were a couple of things for me that indicated that this is an institution that wanted to not only continue and change and evolve, not just for the sake of change, but really as an adaptation of the times, as the museum has always done throughout its history.
Well, before I let you go, just real quickly, I don't know what you'd be willing to reveal, and I'm sure your plate's full with learning on the job and all that sort of stuff. Anything long range that's in the back of your mind, a goal or something you want to accomplish while you're here?
I think for me right now, again, I've only been here for a few months. I'm really getting to know and understand the St. Louis community and to really be able to find what are the strengths from which we can continue to build upon for this institution and the ways in which we can engage and partner and collaborate with some incredible institutions and organizations in the area. So while that may not get into the specifics, I think more partnerships, more collaborations are certainly something that we're looking forward to.
Well, Min-Jung Kim, we welcome you to town. We look forward to you being here a long time. And you're new to St. Louis, so have you done Ted Drewes or eaten gooey butter cake yet?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, you're moving in the right direction. Min-Jung, thank you so much, and much success to you and the museum.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we're going to take a look or a preview of an upcoming exhibition at the St. Louis Art Museum. That's next on City Corner.
The Missouri Botanical Garden is loved by green thumbs and non-gardening types alike because you can play. You can relax. And there's always something new to experience, no matter the time of day or the season. And learn about conservation and one-of-a-kind plants. So come and experience St. Louis.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination. But don't just imagine. Use STEM to change the world.
Who's with me?
It's gonna hurt tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods nestled into 108 city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and of course, the beautiful Tower Grove Park where I'm at now. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We've got the St. Louis Surge, two-time WBCBL champions. We've got Harris Stowe, WashU, St. Louis University, and of course, the 11-time World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals. So come experience St. Louis.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking about the St. Louis Art Museum. Of course, we just met their new director, and now we're going to talk about a new exhibition that's coming up and opening on February the 20th. Andrea Miller is a curator at the museum. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
What does curator really mean? Do you have a little short definition?
Yes. Curator is supposed to be in charge of this collection, specifically different departments. So for instance, in our department, we're in charge of European art to 1800s. So the head curator, Judith Mann, she was the creator of the show, and I've been working with her for 10 years. But technically, we are stewards of all the collection, but we have specific departments that we are in charge of.
So just off the top of your head, how many curators would a museum like the St. Louis Art Museum have? Is that 10 curators? Do you have 50 curators or what?
I think we have about 20 or
Wow.
so, yes.
It's fascinating. Yes, you mentioned Judith Mann. We're here to talk about this new exhibition that opens on the 20th of February, Paintings on Stone. I think the full name of it is Paintings on Stone, the Science and the Sacred.
Yes, 1530 to 1800s, yes. It is a collection of paintings that we accumulated between the years of 1530 and 1795. And this is about 76 paintings on approximately 20 different type of stones.
Of all sizes?
Yes, of all sizes.
Because, you know, I was talking earlier about people painting on the little tiny stones now. Is there anything, are they that small, some of them?
Some of them are that small. Some of them are small little medals, and some are as large as 2 by 3 feet.
Do we know why they painted on stone then? Maybe was there no canvas in 1500? I don't know.
So this is a very interesting question. Yes. So artists were trying to, just like any other artist, think outside the box. I guess maybe they were tired of painting on canvas and panel, and they thought, okay, why not? Let's try this. So in our show, Sebastiano Del Pionbo is one of the earliest Italian artists who experimented on slate, more specifically. And so we can trace it back to all the way to 1530s when he started to experiment. And then he succeeded in such a way, he had followers. A lot of Italian artists like Antonio Tempesta and Cavaliere del Pino, they were followers like, okay, this is great, let's try this. And until the late 1700s, this was a very popular means of painting.
And I think you mentioned Judith Mann that's been working on this. Did you say 10 or 15 years?
So, so the original idea came to her.
Yeah, I want to.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to because we have an image I want to share with
Yes.
our viewers, and you explain it because it was a purchase and museum made, which I think you're referring to.
Yes.
It was just a single purchase, but over time that led to what's about to open. So tell me what we're looking at
Exactly.
and how it happened.
So we're looking at Cavaliere del Pino, also known as Giuseppe Cesari, who I mentioned earlier. And when Judith Mann bought this painting, she did not really know anything about paintings on stone, but it intrigued her and she was really curious about it. So she started to do research. And she's been researching it for 15 years. And she accumulated a list of 1,200 images of paintings on stone that we had to narrow down for the show to 100, and eventually we'll get 76 for the show. But and so this whole beautiful painting, which is you don't see the size, but it's not that large. It's a very unique painting, but it's what's more unique about it is that it's an entire big piece of lapis lazuli, and so you have to understand lapis lazuli is even today to this day is very expensive to acquire because most of it has been mined in Afghanistan, in remote mountains, or Latin America. So in order to paint on a large, this size lapis, whole lapis, is extremely exquisite.
Let's take a look at a couple of the images that we have of what people can see in the exhibition. Tell me what we're looking at and tell me about
Yes, so this is Sofonisba Anguissola, who's unfortunately, the only female artist, Italian artist in the show. We were trying to get more, but this is the only one we were able to get for the show.
Well, 300 or 400 years ago, I guess that was a man's job, right?
Yes, exactly. So there are very few female artists. And this is a gorgeous portrait of the Minions. And it was originally attributed to Lucas Hare, but now we know it's maybe from a French or Flemish school.
Do we know who those people are or what that's about?
Yes, we do. They were Henry III's minions, and he favored them very much. These are actually men, and so they entertained him, and he was very fond of him. But unfortunately, the minions died in war, so this is a tribute to them. And so he really loved them, and so he wanted to have a... And so Alessandro Turchi, we have multiple images of his paintings in the show, and he used, as you can see here, slate. The reason why most of these artists use slate is, as you can see, they were able to do the contrast between light and dark. It was so much easier because of the dark surface of the slate. So there'll be a lot of religious themed imagery throughout this show.
I'm wondering, paint on stone, are there any issues with preserving that as opposed to paint on canvas? I mean, you know, when they painted it, they didn't know if it lasts 50 years or 300.
So yes, it does technically last longer than on canvas, but some of these are very thin, and the show will show you how thin they are. So they're very fragile if you're transporting them. But they technically are on stone, so they do technically last a little bit longer than canvas. Yes.
Let's take a look at two more images from paintings on stone at the St. Louis Art Museum.
Yes, so this is one of those fascinating stones.
Stone can be framed?
Yes, so most of these paintings will be framed. It is, and we will be showing certain aspects of it from the back, how it is. Sometimes they needed to use slate in order to, accommodate the frame itself. But in this instance, this type of stone was, as you can see, mostly used for naval and battle scenes, because as you can see, the striations of the stone make a lovely ocean. And yes, so I was waiting for the second.
Let's go to the next one, sure.
And again, Alessandro Turchi, who I mentioned earlier, he, as you can see, he's fascinated by using dark stone. So an entire gallery will be actually dedicated to dark stones, and this will be in there too. And as you can see, he again was using that light and dark contrast between the figures and the stone itself.
Andrea, I'm curious. All of the stylistically, they all kind of look similar to me, but we're dealing in a time period from 1530 to 1800. That's almost 300 years. So when you see the whole collection, is there a pretty big variety in style and subject matter and that sort of thing?
Yes, you will see the gradual, the way we laid out the galleries. We're starting from 1500s all the way to 16 and 1700s, and then you eventually will see that different style artists used, in the 18th century. Yes.
I did see a little something that kind of surprised me about this, and it was that some of the work in this exhibition alludes, and I'm sure it's a small minority of it, alludes to physical and sexual violence, which is something I wouldn't even think that topic would have been relevant then, but can you comment on that?
Yes, so there will be, because it's a religious theme, some of these paintings are religious themes. They'll have to do with, certain things that happened in the 15th and 16th century when it relates to religion. But there's also a lot of mythological stories where rapes occur and so so we do have warnings before
I get it.
Yes.
That's sort of surprising. Let's take a look at one more.
Yes, so this is one of my favorite paintings. This is by Johann Kearney, and as you can see, the agate that he uses here is so the artist, just like Koenig, loved this type of stone just because, as you can see, it creates this heavenly realm. And so most of the alabaster and agate images that you will see, they'll kind of remind you of this painting. And there are usually it's the Annunciation or some kind of religious context because it gives that beautiful, gorgeous, you're floating in heavens.
I know you have an exhibition catalog.
Yes. It's about 320 pages with about 8 different international scholars contributing to this catalog, which is very important because this catalog will be a reference to future art historians for many, many years.
So it's Paintings on Stone, The Science and the Sacred, 1530 to 1800. It opens at the St. Louis Art Museum on February the 20th and runs through May the 15th. And yes. Any last word of advice you want to give people that are coming out?
I just want to let people know that this will be a visually stunning show that people, as you said, they think paintings on stone, side of road, they'll have a different notion of what paintings on stone is, especially in Europe between the 15th and 16th century.
Well, Andrea Miller, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to see that. And I guess we'll be seeing some of your other work and other people's work in the future.
Tgood. you, Steve. It was
Coming down to St. Louis Art Museum, Paintings on Stone, opening February the 20th. And there's the contact information. Of course, it's always good. Go to your webpage and they can find out everything that they need to know. So thank you again, and enjoy spring when it finally gets here.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for being part of City Corner, and join us next time. Bye.